This is the Military Bottom Line Podcast, episode 75.
My token phrase is, you work for the military, make the military work for you as well.
Welcome to the Military Bottom Line Podcast, where we learn from veterans and those currently serving how to make the most out of a military contract. We're here to motivate, inspire, and help you leverage your service to positively impact you professionally, personally, and financially during your military career and beyond. What's going on, everybody? Thanks so much for tuning in today. This is your host, Jason Birds. Back with a guest this week. Super excited to introduce you guys to Chris Gonzales. Chris is a transitioning U.S. Army captain, MBA candidate with Rice University, tech entrepreneur, podcaster, fitness professional, and all around a massive wealth of knowledge. Chris was raised in the projects of Salisbury, Maryland. He joined the Army National Guard and completed the Simultaneous membership program, which is an awesome program that you guys should definitely stay tuned to learn about. And he commissioned via Army ROTC as a logistics officer. Throughout this episode, Chris and I talk about his journey through the military and a lot about what he's doing in order to take the transition from the Army into the tech industry. I mean, this guy has taught himself and taken a lot of courses strategically to learn numerous different coding languages and prepare himself for the tech industry. And I learned so much from my conversation with Chris about different resources, opportunities that I did not know existed. And I'm super excited to basically, act on these things that I've learned today, because I've been kind of thinking about the tech stuff a little bit too. And so I'm super excited that I was able to connect with him and learn from him, because he has clearly done a ton of homework. And if you listen to this episode and you're interested in tech at all, he has done all the homework for you. And he spent hours and hours learning and finding opportunities that could better benefit him and prepare him for the career that he wants. And he basically did all the work for you. So the bottom line from this episode that Chris really emphasizes is that consistency compounds. And you can put this in any category of life, whether it be fitness, career, personal development, whatever it might be, financial development. Consistency compounds, and I think Chris is a great example of that. So stay tuned for this episode. I know you guys will enjoy it. Good afternoon, Chris. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Jason. I am a huge fan of your channel and following, and yeah, it's just really great how the cards kind of fall in line here. So I am very excited to offer some insight on military transition, because there's not many channels that I've encountered that deals with that solely. And for those of you listening, I'll go in that later. SFL tap does not cut it.
SFL tap? Yeah, we don't call it SFL, but tap. Yeah, basically tap, the transition class.
Absolutely, and it's worth not that much right now.
Yeah, dude. They're kind of, for me at least, it was hosted by other vets that basically got out and immediately, just taught what they learned in the class. So I think, hearing from people that have their firsthand experiences, they've, either they're living that transition right now, or they've, lived it in a couple of years recently. Learning from those firsthand experiences have been very helpful. So I'm excited to hear your story, because I know you're in kind of, you're in that transition now. You've got what seems like a pretty clear vision for what you want out of the military, or like after the military. And you've also done very well to kind of leverage the opportunities that the military has afforded you. So I'd love to kind of hear, before we get too into it, to kind of tease us with like who you are right now and what are you currently working on.
Absolutely.
We'll go back to the beginning after that.
I think that everybody has kind of their version of the humble story. So I'm going to go way, way back to the cornfields of Maryland and the horses and the swamps and all that good thing. So guys, for those of you guys listening, so if you ever wonder why you want to listen to this guy, I will give you the scoop. My name is Chris Gonzales. I am from the Eastern Shore of Maryland, in a pretty, bad part of Maryland known as Salisbury. Look it up. It's actually got a higher crime rate than Baltimore, which is pretty scary. Yeah, so pretty much I grew up in a pretty poor neighborhood, your typical project type deal. And then I went to high school normally. I was, a C+ student at best. I was more worried about playing basketball or wrestling. And then I decided, hey, I wanted to go to a different state to go wrestle for scholarship. So that's when the military kind of weaved its way into my life. I discovered this thing called the Army National Guard. I'm like, okay, me still being the punk that I was, I've only got to do this once a month. I'd get roasted to drill for not shaving or some things like that sometimes. Then a few of my buddies, they decided to persuade me to do ROTC. And, me still having a bland side of the military, I'm like, okay, I will do this officer thing and we'll see how it goes. Between balancing that school, I was a Division I wrestler. And now outside of my day job at Fort Bliss, which I will get into, I'm crazy into athletics. I used to be pre-diabetic and pre-asthmatic. So,
wow.
I prefer not to go back those times. It's pretty hard to breathe, and it's especially in El Paso, the elevation's high. But hopefully in March, I sign up for the Guinness Book of World Records to squat 500 pounds and run sub 5 in the same day. Now,
Dang.
To what you guys enough about that side. That's just what I like to do for fun. I am a logistics officer for the famed Army Unit, 1st Armored Division, and the even more famous one at the time, 6-1 Cav. I've kind of moved back to the Brigade Support Battalion. You loggies know what I'm saying. That part's not important. But the main part is, the combat arms guys listening, the fact that your vehicles are running, you have fuel, water, ammo at a grand scale, resupply, all the calculations, and I'll get into why this branch shouldn't be discredited for the civilian side. You're welcome. And on part-time, I am a full-time MBA candidate for Rice, the number one technology MBA in America, beating out Harvard, Stanford in the past 5 years. I'm going to be stakeholder in a tech startup pretty soon, and I have used the Army lucratively to be proficient in all data architectures without extending my service obligation, because I didn't know how much time that I wanted to be in. But just for reference, I'm a captain with 7 years in. I just feel like I don't want to be on staff, making op orders. I want to be down with troops. I want to be down leading those log packs and convoys. And life's good. We got the Army Maintenance Excellence Award. That's basically the Super Bowl as a logistician. And, I feel like that my time's up. Instead of serving as a green suiter, I want to go serve in another capacity. So just to round out who you're talking to, I'm just a kid with a dream, no special skill sets. My game stats, I am 5'5" off the ground, and I am part of the 1%, just like you guys.
That's awesome.
But that's a little bit about me.
Right on, dude. That's an in-depth 30,000 foot view. So I appreciate that. I'm excited. Obviously you got a lot of things on your plate and you're moving forward in a good direction. You kind of glazed over, it sounded almost like you joined the military, not really on accident, but like it wasn't really a forethought that you had planned on. You kind of like just stumbled into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I got a scholarship at Marshall University in West Virginia, and the out-of-state tuition for anything is going to be very expensive. Going from Maryland then I found out they had a tuition assistance policy, and at the time I was a 19 Delta Cavalry Scout. So I was like, okay, I got to do 1 week in the summer. 2 weeks in the summer, and one drill weekend. And then, West Virginia floods a lot. I found myself, some of that worked in my favor. There was a biology test I was about to completely fail. I was like, hey, I got state active duty. He's like, oh yeah, we'll just give you 100 on it. But that's not the other reason. Just kind of like the citizen soldier concept wasn't too much to bear. And for those college students listening, if that's what you're into, to pad the resume, or like maybe you have a chance to serve, it's not too overbearing depending on what state you're at as well. So yeah, by accident, absolutely kind of looked into it to see if it was going to be in too much of an obstacle towards my time. And it turns out it wasn't. I got through school okay, a lot better than high school, I'll tell you that. Yeah.
Nice. So it's primarily for the means of affordability of college from what I'm understanding. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. What were you studying? Did you do anything specifically with your education in the Army, or did you just check that box and get the commission and move on?
Compared to what my day job is, I would say is inversely different. I just study general business administration with an emphasis on management and information systems. Nothing too fancy. It sounds fancy, but it's really not.
Okay.
Much carryover. I wouldn't say not really. Logistics as a whole is a completely different ballgame.
Yeah. Yeah. So information systems. So you still had a little bit of an IT foundation that you were laying during undergrad?
Not at all. And that undergrad, they just kind of barely glanced over it. I'm talking about like, hey, this is what it says in the textbook, and here's a written assignment on it. That's it.
Gotcha. Gotcha. That sounds about like what most undergrad is.
Yeah.
a glazing over a topic. Right on. Cool. So you ended up as a logistics officer. You won't go through the pipeline for that. After your ROTC, you have a what, 4-year commitment to the Army? Is that accurate?
Yeah. So those of you listening, obviously, hopefully HRC, aka Human Resources Command, doesn't come after me as public enemy number one on this topic, but I'm sure there's been many people that have executed this maneuver. So
Mm.
when you're in the Guard, you can do what's called the Simultaneous Membership Program. And pretty much you can still use the Guard's TA to pay for your college. And here, listen, check this out. If you have the means to not get a scholarship and still live comfortably on the stipend, then when you commission, your National Guard contract is void. So what I did not take a scholarship because I had the means from the Guard and they do the kicker and all that other stuff.
Mm.
I only ended up having to do 3 years. I stayed in a little longer because I loved what I did, and now I am not interested in going to career corps, burning up another year and taking company command. I thought that my platoon leader time was worth its weight in gold, especially, what I was going through at the time. And I don't know, I just feel like it just made me a better person. I feel like not many 22-year-olds would have gotten that experience.
So let me back up because that's something I'm working on as a video for kind of leveraging the National Guard benefits for education and navigating that in a effective and efficient way. So you call it the simultaneous membership program, and that means you are in the National Guard but also like in ROTC simultaneously, right?
Yeah. So for example, I'll take my little case study as kind of a testament. I was
Yeah.
a PFC at the time.
Yep.
I signed that contract. I still go to the same unit. I was a cadet. They treat me as an officer, which was strange. And then
Yeah.
so basically you have a contract that says you will complete your ROTC fulfillments. And then whatever, let's just say you had an 8-year commitment in the Guard as a PFC, all that's void once you get active duty. Then, so let's just say you decline your contract, you don't have to do the 4, the 5, the 6 years. Some of these colleges are doing crazy things. Now, if you're West Point, you're kind of fucked. Or maybe, and please excuse my French on that one, or maybe if you like serving, why not? I believe they have a lengthier obligation right off the bat, like 6 or 7 combined. So
Yeah, that sounds right. Okay. So then you use the Guard benefits to pay for college, but because you were part of ROTC, you were essentially guaranteed a commission through that program without taking the ROTC scholarship.
yes, and
Cool.
the scholarship's extra money. Don't get me wrong, if you need it, I don't think 1 year would have changed my trajectory path anyway. But I mean, you never know. You never know. So
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So you were using, do you use Chapter 1606 GI Bill for college then?
I was using just Guard. I don't know the specifics, but I know your post 9/11 I still have in the bank right now. So I just use whatever. Nice. Every state's different.
Yeah.
For example, I was speaking to Maryland and West Virginia. Maryland's pretty bad. It was only like 4,500 a semester, which kind of sucks.
Yeah.
West Virginia was 100% plus 90% of any private school. So anybody shopping around, I mean, if you ever want to pull the maneuver of going out of state for college, it might be a little bit more affordable than you think it is.
Yeah. Totally agree. That's awesome. All right. So you had a 3-year service obligation to the Army. And what happened in the first 3 years that made you think like, okay, like I want to do this again. Let me re-up for another 4 years.
Well, let me back up. So for the officer side, you don't re-up per se. You kind of take it after your initial obligation, you take it year by year. But no, I mean, so I just kind of found myself in a very weird but opportunistic situation. Like we had our standalone unit in the whole Station 4 Bliss had strikers and everybody was tanks. And like we had to turn in our strikers. It's kind of like when you train in a car, you turn something in, you get something better. And I was dealing with that. It was like a cool time to just, be alive. Like my platoon, I was my only platoon leader. Out of all my friends, I had a platoon of like 122 strong at one time. I was just having people, we would roll up squad deep, we would eat lunch together. Half my platoon was Puerto Rican flags everywhere. And I was just learning a lot about life in general. I had a pretty rough upbringing. And I think one of the most grand moments is that I didn't know how to ride a bike, being 22 years old. And then so some of my soldiers were like, hey, sir, everybody's going at the motor pool. We're not going to judge you one step after the other. And then, after eating it a few times, there I was. So I think the most pivotal and more hands-on time in the Army as an officer is probably your platoon leader or company commander time. Because after that, for those of you listening, think about commissioning, you're going to spend a lot of time on what's called staff. And that shit sucks. I'm not going to lie. It's important. Don't get me wrong. It's very important because what you plan, people are going to execute. But I just don't like that. I'd like to be hands-on, talk to people, and interactive.
Yeah. This is such a recurring point for officers that we talked on the show, is that a lot of them call it quits at the point of going to field grade staff or whatever you guys call it in the Army. Where the career and like the day to day is just, it's the desk grind much more than out with the troops. So super interesting. So when you were talking earlier that you were able to kind of use different benefits and opportunities within the Army without lengthening your obligation, did your pursuit of those opportunities start within the first 3 years, or was that more in the latter portion of your career?
I would say within the first 3 years. It was toward like the latter portion of my platoon leader time, definitely. Okay. But I was like, I don't know how much longer I want to do this, so I have to make a dedicated effort to be, to kind of break those generational curses. I want to have a family one day. I don't want to be divorced. I want to be marketable. Yeah. So I think one of the biggest tools that somebody can do, I don't know why more people don't do this, because it's literally as simple as what I'm about to say. Go to your post-education center and ask the questions. And you would be surprised. They know a lot about you, like when your contract date is up, even more than HRC, which is kind of creepy. If you walk in there and say the words, hey, what certifications do you guys have that will not extend my service obligation? They will tell you straight up, because it's a bunch of civilians working in there. They don't care. They're not going to tell your boss. Yeah. And like, that's just one avenue. Then you have, I have a whole audible list of various opportunities I can go through first. But I would say, when in doubt, go to your education center. They'll probably give you the same as what I'm about to tell you as well.
I love that point that you go in intentionally saying like, all right, I want to pursue opportunities, but I'm not really interested in, extending my service obligation. And I feel like so many people, they just assume, depending on what their circumstance is in the military, that they can't take advantage of certain things without adding more time to their contract. And for you to be like super intentional about like, finding ways to get education, get certifications without adding additional time is huge, and everybody should be taking up that lesson. What kind of things were they telling you about? So like, let's hear some things that were you thinking specifically, okay, like I want to be tech oriented, business oriented, vocational oriented. Like, did you have any idea of kind of what industry you were pursuing certificates in, or was it just kind of like whatever I can get for free that's not going to add time, like give it to me? What was your mindset there?
Well, your second part, yes, and then back to the first part. Once I told them that, they kind of just gave me like, you go to a fancy restaurant, they give you the menu, big menu of like everything. And like vocational online schools, but they told me specifically, hey, this is, if you take one credit from here, it's going to add 3 more years. So you probably want to stay away. You probably want to stay away from that, but the option's open. So vocational stuff like CSPs when you get closer, and all the other things. And surprisingly, I mean, here's the thing: a lot of the stuff that they offer would cost a lot for just your average civilian out there. Like, I can't think of another program that would sponsor, PMP or Azure or Amazon Web Services, which I'm working on now, or like even like they even directed one of my buddies who wanted to be like an IT person on the defense gig when he got out. He took 3 consecutive classes within like a month for like CISP, IT defense, all this other stuff. And you're talking about thousands of dollars if you're a civilian. Like the military is like, okay, you will go to this class, and you can frame it to where, so obviously if you don't go to military school, you can go to jail. You can have it rigged up on your schedule with a 4856 for some classes. that it'll be the same. So like, here's the thing. My token phrase is, you work for the military, make the military work for you as well. It's
Yeah.
as simple as that.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. I mean, especially during like, once you've come to the conclusion that like, okay, I'm not going to stay in any longer, I guess if you're thinking about doing 20, fine. Like, don't let the military work for you. Just do whatever the military wants you to do because it's going to be your life. I think that's a little bit short sighted. But I mean, once you come down to the conclusion that you're going to transition, like take advantage of every opportunity possible because there are so many of them. And to be able to get the military to not only fund your programs and classes, but to be able to do it as like your quote unquote work day. Like that's your appointed place of duty is massive. And like no other employer is going to allow you to do that.
Oh yeah, definitely not. Like, you would have to work in a firm or something for years before your employer's like, okay, I might pay for your
Hmm.
next education, or it might be half.
Yeah.
So I spent a little bit of time with the UK military.
Mm.
They came to my day job a few months ago, and like, it's a life changing experience. We get to talk military to military, because you just don't realize in a lot of countries how much they don't give a fuck about their own military. They're like, hey
Mm.
guys, like, we were all just barbecuing, chatting it up off post one day. I'm like, hey guys, what are your benefits? Compared to us, you guys, have. I feel like, are you guys respected too? Like, yeah, we get like maybe half a pension after 20 years. Maybe 25% of what you call GI Bill, this and that, and this and that. And I was like, guys, America is the land of opportunity. You need to take advantage. And if you don't know, ask. And there's plenty of
Yeah.
people to ask. So
Yeah.
in America, I think we got it right on that part. People just don't capitalize on it, and they're not educated enough on it.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, I think it's also been a relatively new development. I mean, if you talk to vets from the 90s, 80s, like, the GI Bill and a lot of these benefits, CSP, they're making massive changes, positive changes to the transition programs, to the benefits. And so I think we're very fortunate to be, serving at this point in time compared to others in that sense. But
Yeah, absolutely. Especially, I think the icing on the cake is that your GI Bill used to only be good for 10 years. Now it's good for eternity.
eternity.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
like, it's not uncommon. Me being in
Yeah.
the NBA world right now, I'm in a group chat where there's like this 06 is going to Colombia, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I still got my GI Bill. Let's get it." I'm like, "Yeah, because you deserve it. I mean, you
Yeah.
spent 20 years. Now, if you want to get better, why not get better?"
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. Awesome. So during your latter half of your career, I mean, are you're trying to take advantage of these programs? Are you getting like deployed in the midst of these things? Are you getting sent to the field for weeks on end? Like how are you able to balance pursuing these certificates, pursuing these courses, and maintaining a well served military career?
I'm a big fan of time blocking,
Mm.
and obviously I'm a huge advocate of not taking any more time to focus on something than you need to.
Mm.
Obviously, military comes first in all of those facets, because you have to develop, lead, and train. That is a no go. I would never leave work early to go. That one, that just looks bad too. You're not doing the young PFC that this may be his first impression of
Mm.
professional life. But I'm a big fan of the 1 hour rule, right? You take something, you look at it, you assess it, you focus on it for a clear 60 minutes. That compounds. That's what, like, in a whole 7 days, that's 7 hours. And then if you still have time, go on to the next subject for another 60 minutes. I know a
Yeah.
lot of my buddies are out here focusing on coding and networking for a whole, like, I don't know, they'll take Friday for like 8 hours. But according to rules of cognitive neuroplasticity, I'm a huge fan of this. I've read through all the Harvard studies and all of the studies of Cambridge. Is that if you focus on something for 1 to 2 hours, if that's your only thing in life, like, I'll turn my phone off,
Mhm.
or can do not disturb. That's a little bit of a risky business being in the military, by the way. Sometimes you got to. I had to stop that at one point. Focus on something for an hour, and then once you look back at it, you'll see that you've retained it for a whole lot longer.
Mm.
And coding and stuff is not that difficult as people claim it out to be. Treat it like a video game. And I
Mm.
think for veterans, you don't have to go down that route. I think being able to interpret data sets is just as valuable as learning how to create them,
Mm.
just in my personal opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I think the time blocking, that's something that I'm trying to do some work on and learn about because like, sometimes it just feels like like your time just disappears, like who knows where it goes. that it's so fragmented into different, different obligations, different relationships, different, duties that you've got to take care of. And so, yeah, to learn, I'm for my own personal benefit. Where did you start in your pursuit of, practicing, learning, and, um, setting up your time blocking practices? Is it a certain
Oh,
book or something like that?
um, I listen to a lot of Gary Vaynerchuk, and
Ah,
he goes about it in depth. Definitely, yeah. He has a lot of motivational stuff, but a lot of people don't realize he has a lot of productivity hacks as well. You just go on his YouTube channel. It's a lot of his earlier stuff.
okay.
A lot of Elon Musk, as crazy as he perceived he is, I think he does have a near utopian model.
Mm,
And that takes a lot for me to say that something's almost near perfect for productivity. Even working and working out, there's plenty of people that have done the challenge on YouTube about how to time block it, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna live like Elon Musk for a day,
oh yeah,
and
yeah,
they're like, this is the most productive day I've ever had in my life.
yeah.
And no, I mean, other than that, just trying and applying it. Everybody in the military, we've all done training meetings, 30, 60, 90 calendars, backwards planning. Honestly, I just took the backwards planning concept
Mm,
and applied it to real life. Hey, I want to be certified by this date. Okay, I know I got a range coming up. I have services coming up. I have to go lead my platoon these days. But hey, I got this 60 minutes Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and man, I'd be a little bit late, but I can still get 7 hours of sleep. And so it's kind of like dissecting your schedule. I'm a huge fan of Google Calendars.
yeah.
As annoying as Microsoft Teams is on the military side, it's very useful in real life.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's really not that many people in the private sector that kind of don't beat the same drum. So I just kind of
Mm,
listen to a few. But I mean, they all say the same thing. Time blocking seems to be king, especially nowadays.
yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I know you're pursuing involvement in the tech industry, and you know, it's very common for vets to be like, oh, I'm gonna get out, I'm gonna make six figures, I'm gonna make a ton of money. Or like it's like earnings is typically pretty important for people transitioning out of the military. That's often where we focus. And obviously the tech industry is a typically well-paid industry. And so, everybody pursues it for their own, goals and whatever they're going after. But for those that are considering like what's a lucrative career, I think we can agree tech, learning how to code, has proved itself to be pretty lucrative. Um, I know you have you taught yourself a number of these different coding languages, or were you able to learn all these coding languages via programs and certification classes?
Yeah, the certification classes help provided by the military, but you got to remember it's just like anything that you do.
Yeah.
You have to apply it abstractly and functionally, meaning that you got to actually get your hands on projects, which
Yeah.
there's a ton. Just Google them on the internet. Somebody, freelancing for $0.00. Hey, help me build this input and output.
Mm,
Wash, rinse, and repeat. But going to a lot of veterans are like, oh, how do I break into tech? I don't know how to code anything. That's not important. And here's what I'm about to say.
mm,
Two programs with this CEOs that have actually I talk to a lot regularly. Yeah, yeah. In fact, I need to reconnect with one of them because I was kind of teeter-totter on the MBA route, but we're still good friends. So the first one is TechWalt.
Tech
That
Walt.
Yeah. So what I'm about to talk about is the emergence of veteran selective transition programs. I'll put veterans in maybe a better spot in some cases than they were beforehand. Maybe an alternative to a degree. I've seen a few people that have amazing results. In fact, when this comes out, I'm gonna tag my boy Delaire in here because the guy literally went from logistician to crunching it up. Like, the guy makes more than my brigade commander. He works remotely for Amazon, doesn't know how to code. He knows a lot about he knows a lot about Amazon Web Services, which
Mm,
is a way to interpret data, which I'm about to get into. The guy is in Cozumel, Mexico, seemingly vacationing every day, but he'll wake up 4 hours, he'll do his thing. The guy's a lucrative salesperson. And don't let the word sales fool you. I'll get to that in a sec.
yeah.
Circling back, tech quality is just basically it. You go through a screening process and they give you the most world-class training in the world. I'm talking about like cloud, how to interpret cloud computing with huge companies like Cisco. I think Cisco's the capstone program in I want to say San Antonio, Texas. They take it very seriously, and they use this cloud computing trainer called Launchpad, and you just come out of Rockstar. And I know about 27 people that have come out of this. All their base salaries have been between like 75,000, 80,000, and they're already like crushing it like 120, 150. They put the work behind it. But
how long is the
basically,
program?
oh man, I should have came prepared with that one. But it kind of coincides. I think you can do it up to 6 months out, and depending on how fast or how close or how not close you are, they're probably going to speed it up or slow it down. It's in cohorts too, and anything I ask, you can always. There's always a veteran running this. In fact, the CEO Lex Brown, former Air Force, he is the yeah, that's going to be the first name on the website. He's in charge of onboarding people. But yeah, you talk to the guy, you would have thought he would have been grown up in Silicon Valley or something. He knows everything about everybody. And those are the type of people that spit out. So I would say TechWald, I can say from personal experience that a lot of my buddies that didn't know what they were doing, they're living huge, happy lives, making more than their boss's boss after like three or 4 years. And most importantly, they're a lot well versed to thrive in the tech industry without any shortfalls. You know, they're the connections that they make, it's with them for life. And, you know, they go from firm to firm to firm, and they're marketable because they keep refining their skills. And Launchpad is something they can always come back to. And I think the biggest shortfalls about tech is that there's that much veteran presence in there right now, but it's getting to that point. So I'm going to circle back to that one. Second one, Brakeline education. Now, this one is pretty neat, and this is something I'm still going to use. So basically, it's the same thing as TechWall, but the way it's kind of differentiated, like they're going to do a lot of work, leg work on your end for you. It's kind of like a startup that is solely dedicated to taking your skills, and they're going to go through hoops and valleys. I don't know how they do this, but you're going to pop up a few months later where something that you did in the military is translated completely to tech. Like, okay, here's your job. Now, that one's a lot more selective than TechWall, but the cool thing about that one is, too, that one just doesn't end with the transition. Let's say you're an MBA student or a grad school student. You'll be able to get an internship. You can radio up the Brakeline and be like, hey, I'm a first-year MBA student at this university or MPA or something. Is there something in the tech space I can do? Yeah. So that's the cool thing about an MBA. I can get into that later. That's a whole different ball game.
So before we get too away from these, so first I want to clarify: TechWall, WALL.
TechQuald, you know, as in like qualify with your weapon.
Oh, TechQuald. Okay.
Yeah.
Quald.
Yeah. And sorry if I was going off on a tangent. I'm just trying to frame it because it's a lot of people's first time hearing about this.
Yeah.
And they don't realize that this is a gateway that is available to you, which is sad because I haven't heard anything about this at Tech. Anyway,
yeah, absolutely.
Please proceed.
So you got TechWald and you got Brakeline education.
Yeah.
Both are basically programs to get people from zero to career, you know, beginning place in the tech world.
Yeah.
You were able to take advantage of one or both of these programs so far while you're in the Army?
I interviewed for TechWorld. I was offered a job and then I got accepted to Rice. So that's different.
Gotcha.
Brakeline has a little bit more longevity. So I'll get into the architecture of what vets get into mostly in tech that don't have a tech background. So so I'm going to use the word sales, but don't think about the sleazy car salesman trying to sell you a car at like X amount. It's what you've been doing in the military. Business has a problem. You provide the solution.
Yeah.
Now, the hierarchy that a lot of veterans fall into when they get out these programs, if you don't go to a school route or something, you're going to land in what's called the AE, account executive role. It's already a pretty high paying role off the bat. Your job is to kind of coach a team of SDRs, BDRs, sales development representatives and business development representatives. Yep. Which the cool thing about these programs that you get to skip all these parts like right off the bat, because that involves like cold calling, only getting paid like $30,000-$40,000 a year. And
are you, just out of curiosity, because you know we have both officer and enlisted that listen to this. So are you talking mostly to officers for these opportunities, or do you know any of enlisted people that have been able to go directly to these similar roles?
I know one officer that has done. It's mostly been like my E5s,
Okay.
E6s, and E4s. So it's really about how much work you want to put in. They give you the tools, the most up to date tools. It's just going to be up to you to execute.
Yeah.
So that's what the cool thing. I'll go to the tech qual side. You're going to come out as an AE making a pretty good amount of money, and then depending on how hard you want to work, and it's not going to be that bad because they give you the connections, they give you the training. You just got to execute, just like in the military.
Mm. Yeah, that's awesome. So are these free for veterans, free for service members? Are you using tuition assistance or GI Bill? What are you doing to fund these programs?
It's 100% free to veterans. The only thing is that it's a selective program. The people that I've seen graduate, though, obviously they got a good head on their shoulders. They want to learn more. The people that get rejected are kind of like, oh, I just need a job.
Mm.
Oh, this involves reading into tech a little bit. Even though you're giving me the tools, I don't want to do this. This sounds tedious. I'm like, well, what sounds tedious? Not having something set up when you get out, or maybe things with upward mobility. That's the thing. Yeah. A lot of these have a lot of upwards mobilities. I've seen people that didn't know that they can get into. I know my buddy in tech called, he got spit out into an AI community manager role. And he was like, I don't know anything about AI. After year one, he was just out there crushing it. So now he went from like AE to like territory manager for artificial intelligence. And the guy speaks the language. He wears the nice suits. He drives nice cars. And he was just an E4 mechanic like not too long ago.
That's wild. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, that's such a good point, is that I think a lot of people can get discouraged when they get into a program, whether it be coding or something in college, and it gets hard, and like, it's like, maybe I don't want to do this. And at the end of the day, like, you're going to it's going to be hard now, or it's going to be hard later, And so if you put in the work now to get through whatever the program is and build those skills, you'll have an easier time later on once you've got your career developed, you're making, enough to survive, enough to support your family. Or you can do what's easy now, and then it's going to be more difficult to support your family, more difficult to, put food on the table. And maybe that's a little bit dramatic, but the point is that it's going to be hard either now or later, kind of depending on what you choose. And so, if you're able to grind through something like that and set yourself up for success in that sense, then, you're putting yourself ahead of a lot of people for sure. So what languages, I mean, in your experience, you've been involved, like, I don't know a ton about tech. And so when you say you speak all of the languages, or X number of languages, what languages are you focusing on? And like, what languages were you focusing on to build that foundation and progress?
I would say for anybody listening, there's a base few that the other more complicated ones are built off of, and you'll see this. If you don't believe me, you'll see this once you get to the higher syntaxes and inputs and outputs. Definitely JavaScript, C++, SQL, and that's about it. And then you'll see once you get to the higher level ones like Python, Ruby on Rails, Azure sometimes, but you'll see it's that framework. And I mean, don't be scared, get those right first, and you'll see the harder ones aren't going to be that hard. Take it from somebody that didn't mess with the syntax until he was 21 on active duty. And that's just one way. That opens up other doors maybe, but previously, going back to what I was said, those guys make that money learning how to interpret that data and provide a business solution to higher level stakeholders. So what I said before, none of those guys know how to code for the most part. They might be able to look at something and be like, oh, he's having trouble doing output A, but my Cisco cloud computing software can help him do it so much faster, saving him X amount of dollars per service RPM cycle. And that's just also, none of those guys know how to do that. But the most important thing, they know what they're looking at, and they know that it's a problem. Going to the coding side, it opens a whole lot of different doors, like front end, back end development, sales, engineering, which could be a boatload of money if that's what you're into. And a lot of stakeholders need people to code their websites, their apps. You have what's called UX, user experience, UI designer, user interface. So that's just another realm you can go through, and both divergent paths I just talked about, one's not better than the other. I've known some AEs are like, okay, I'm making this amount of money, but I want to be better for my job. I'm going to learn how to code. picks up JavaScript, C++, SQL in 6 months, and now they're just brainiacs. So nothing is more, I would say nothing's better than the other, because you don't get the customer facing sales part as a front end developer, but you don't need to. So nothing's better than the other. I just say you being well versed in tech, if you can create the architecture, if you can interpret the architecture, you'd be better either way.
Yeah. So I know, like, for a lot of people, you know, because I know before I started thinking about tech, it was like just kind of like it was all blur. Like where it's all like, where do you start? You know, if you're brand new to making money, you're trying to figure out how to invest, it's super overwhelming. You have no idea where to start. You know, and so maybe you got like an E2, an O2, whatever in the military, and they're like, you know, I hear tech's a good place to kind of build a career, but like you start looking into it, you get a bunch of different languages, like you said. I mean, where should somebody go to just kind of like other than YouTube to like watch some, you know, random videos on it? Where should somebody be going to like start and building just kind of a general foundation of understanding of tech, and try to figure out like, okay, these are kind of the vectors that I could go, and understand what those vectors are, and if they're want to be involved in one vector over the other.
I would say, find a mentor. Life can be confusing, especially when you've been out of tune for the civilian side for a while. Because in the military, it's very straightforward. You put on the same uniform every day, you do the same job. Nothing's evolving, especially in the equipment wise. And so much is military grade. So here's a few resources I recommend. I think what I got, this one phone call kind of set my path, started my trajectory straight, because I was the same way. There's a company called BetterATI.com.
BetterATI?
BetterATI, and I can give you the spelling later. A lot of these have some very weird names, I must say. It's a database of successful people in any space, tech, real estate, freaking game. I know there's one person making almost 7 figures gaming. I hopped on the gaming, making architecture. I literally hopped on the phone with her because one of her other talents were LinkedIn audits. That's the only reason. Find an industry that you want to. You can schedule a call with any of these guys for free. They're going to call you. You guys are going to chat it up. And my one mentor that I had, he was a Marine. He works in a company in Austin where he is like a national sales manager for a cloud computing company, helping people with like phones and internet services. And he kind of gave me the whole straightforward. He's like, hey, when I got out of the Marines, I started out in SDR, BDR. Then I became an AE. Then I became a straight-up manager. It's like, hey, if you want to get into the sales side, here's what you need to know about Salesforce and all those other things. Here's what you could expect. He told me I make $200,000 a year, not even knowing how to code, but I understand it. And you can do that with anything. You can schedule calls. You can find out, get a little clarity call, find out if the industry's right for you. And it took me about 5 calls to find out that tech was the right thing for me. So
BetterATI.com, and that's basically like free mentors. Is that where, like?
You just gotta lock
it
in.
They're all veterans on there that are going to be kind of connecting you and mentoring you in that arena.
Yeah, and if they can't provide something 100%, they're going to pass it off to another buddy. So I spent 5 calls. I thought real estate wanted to be my thing. I learned a little bit about it. Maybe I didn't want to devote my time 100% to that. So I just kept calling until I found out about tech. And then I learned a little bit more about tech sales and coding. And you can get into the nitty gritty. That's what they're there for. They sign up for it because out of the goodness of their hearts. And there's like thousands of people on there, and I'm getting into the venture capital space, and I hopped right back on there not even like 3 months ago to somebody in Georgia, and he gave me the whole spiel on it and why veterans should get involved. So it's an invaluable resource if you want to find clarity, because I don't recommend going out and getting certified in a bunch of stuff you're not 100% sure about. Go find some clarity first. Get a plan first. You've done this in the military. Get the order and execute, but find out what you want to do first, and that's an easy way to do it.
Yes, honestly, dude, that is such a huge resource. Like, because I was thinking like, okay, let's start taking some AWS classes, getting some random certs, just like build a foundation. But you could basically just like skip that process, talk to people to basically narrow down what you want to be involved in, rather than taking a month to get a certification just to figure out like that's not what I want to do. So like the more people you talk to and get an idea of like what they do, what they're proficient at, and just ask questions, you can really circumvent a lot of pain and time wasted by just learning from other people. So yeah, I'm gonna definitely check that out. BetterATI.com. That's huge.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's not uncommon. It'll have your various icons on there, like, hey, does this veteran have access to jobs, or just clear, like, it'll have those various. It's not uncommon. Some people do get offered jobs on there. Like I did get offered I was on a call with somebody from San Diego. He's like, hey, I like how in depth you know about logistics. I can get you trained in maritime logistics and Microsoft Dynamics. If you like to make $110,000 a year, please move down to San Diego. I was like, I told him respectfully, I'm like, that is not what I'm into. But thank you for the. So that's the gravity. You can go on there. You'll never know what you'll find.
Wow. Yeah, that's huge. That's huge. I know you mentioned in an Instagram post that you took advantage of the Onward to Opportunity program through Syracuse University.
Yeah. So I know they're their own standalone program, but I think Syracuse facilitates a lot of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So they're not technically part of Syracuse University. They're just kind of like
yeah, they get their funding, I believe, and credentialing assistance from them. Yes.
Okay. And so, because I started looking there, and I know that they offer free programs for active military, spouses, veterans. I mean, there's a lot of people that can actually take advantage of these programs, and whether it be something you're interested in, business, project management, coding, analytics. I mean, there's a massive number of different courses and certifications you can get through that program. What's your experience been? I mean, I think you've taken a couple courses there, right?
Yeah, some, if not a bunch. Yeah. So I think some of the most expensive parts of any of these programs is like the testing materials package, which or like the study material. They'll give that to you for free.
Wow.
Now, once you get within the 6-month window, they're only going to like sponsor for like one more. But take as many on active duty as you can, because you can spam that pretty much until you're done. Now, there's some of them that kind of like, okay, you're still on active duty, you're going to have to pay for the test. Okay, that's probably like the most inexpensive part compared to the material. Because, for example, if I wanted to go get certified in Google IT and I didn't want to waste my time, I want to get the package. I believe that's worth like $999, and the test itself is worth like $150.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so O2O gives you that for free. So if I got to pay that small fractional amount of money to be successful, okay, fine. And I'll spam that a few times. There's always going to be a loophole around everything.
Yeah, seriously. So then that's pretty much, I don't want to say unlimited number of courses you can take while on active duty, but it's more limited once you're actually off active duty and on a veteran status. Is that what I'm understanding?
Now, that one I'll look more into, but I know according to your TAP Center, if you're within the 6-month window, they have a one more rule for anything. You cannot like all of a sudden run there and be like, hey, can I get the testing materials for all 3 of these at one time? No, they're going to do one more. But for that one more within that window, though, they will sponsor your test too. So that's cool. They'll give you like a free test waiver.
Gotcha.
But that's what I'm saying. Beat them to the punch first. Get proactive on active duty first. And if they provide a test waiver or not, who cares? They're going to pay for the most expensive part normally, which is the study material, they're all very effective for the face value, I would say.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. I mean, just hearing, like, you've done, whether or not you've learned it from other people, which is still part of the homework, like you've done a tremendous amount of homework to, learn about these opportunities, learn about these programs, and not only learn about the programs, but take action on the programs and get those certifications, learn those languages. And so like building that foundational, that network of people and taking those courses is just, it's so much work. And basically you've given everybody that listens to this probably like dozens of hours worth of research all inside of 40 minutes. And that's, that's huge, dude. So really, really appreciate you sharing this, this insight, this wisdom, and, the lessons that you've learned through this time. That's huge.
Yeah, man. Dreams don't work unless you do. And yeah, I don't regret going. Yeah, like I said, people don't realize we're the most funded military in the world, not just for actual blowing people up in logistics, but for setting people up for success on the outside. And there's huge programs out there that people skip out like, like the CSP program, DoD skill bridge,
Yeah.
like there's still tons of money that people
Yes.
don't capitalize on, tons of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I mean, I think it's a little bit more well known than when I was transitioning out. And because I remember some guy that I was working with, he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to do like this Microsoft class for the next couple of months." And like to my fault, I just like I didn't ask enough questions about it, you know? And if I had taken that class, like basically left the office for a couple of months to go get some Microsoft certifications and get paid for, get paid to do it by the military, who knows what kind of trajectory it would have set me on. And so if you like hear about somebody taking, some random course for a couple months, even if you don't think you want to go work for Microsoft, like just go do it anyways. Go learn the skill, test it out, test the waters, build that network and get some, increase your knowledge base. And you never know what's going to happen. So yeah, definitely jump on those opportunities.
Yeah, it's always easier in the military. You're kind of stuck in one
Mm,
unit. It would take an act of misfortune or something to move. But no, like in the
yeah.
civilian world, you put in your 2 weeks. Oh, I hate Microsoft. I'm gonna go work for Oracle.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, speaking of Microsoft, just a little tidbit here. They do run a skill bridge program that they will certify you in a lot of the major languages in like a little boot camp. It'll spit you out as a site engineer. Average starting salary 107,000. I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Wow.
I tell a lot of my friends about that one. That one's cool. So if you legit want to
Serious.
code for something and you don't know what you're doing, Microsoft tends to set it up pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so let's just like paint this picture. So you're in the last 6 months of your military contract. You've applied for the skill bridge or CSP program where the military is going to continue to pay you to go to a Microsoft course, which is however many months long. You get
6.
6 months. So you spend the last 6 months of your military career getting paid by the military to get certified by Microsoft, who's going to pay you over six figures upon exiting the military. Like, I mean,
On your couch.
it's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like there's literally no excuse to not be successful after transition at this point. And so, yeah, unreal, unreal, awesome, man. Well, I don't want to take too much more of your time, so I'd love to shoot the closing questions at you and kind of wrap this up if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Send it, brother.
All right. Based on your 7 years in the military, would you recommend the military to somebody else?
Yes, especially if somebody of differing demographics, I would say, compared to most of my peers where I was living at, I was like behind the curve on education,
Mm,
literacy wise, and other things. I wouldn't go in there just for the sole intention of trying to get a paycheck. I would go in there trying to build your skills, just trying to be a better person. Because as a lot as a bad rap as the military gets in the media nowadays, it's an opportunity to start over, to
yeah.
learn what values, morals, and ethics means. As crazy as that sounds, a lot of people don't grow up with that. In the military, you're forced to be a team, have to respect people of other races, religions, and all this stuff.
Mm,
And that's unfortunate. I got to say the word forced because I feel like everybody should be doing that anyway.
yeah.
So yes, I would definitely recommend it. Now, definitely go in with an idea for your time frame of how long you would want to, and then adjust fire as accordingly.
Mm, well said. Well said. How did you know it was time to transition out of the military? And I know you're kind of in the midst of your transition now, but what do you foresee being the hardest part about actually leaving the military?
I know that I have everything laid out, which is a great thing to say. I'm not in panic mode all the time or anything like that. And those that do have a plan, they can go to TAP and they can get, like, I've already done all my TAP requirements
Mm,
online. You get what's called a tier one. Tier threes are people that just don't know what they're doing. Oh, I need to take all these classes.
mm,
But even though I know, just stepping into the unknown, because for a lot of people, it's their first big career out of college or out of
yeah,
their hometown if you enlisted, of anything. So I don't know what to expect, but I
mm,
know that even when you leave, there's still a lot of resources available to you, regardless, like, oh, how to find good health care. A lot of people don't realize the mental health resources available to you. They don't leave anyway. It's just a phone call away. And like
mm,
I said, the veteran community is valued in a lot of places. So don't ever think that you're alone. I just turned 26. I'm like, wow, this is going to be a scary career change, but I'm ready
mm.
for it because there's other green suiters that may not be in the service right now, but I can always go to. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. What do you think separates those people that have a smooth transition out of the military versus not so smooth?
I would say definitely clarity of their career progression, and most importantly, putting action to the prayer. You'd be like, oh, I want to be this person in 3 years in the military. Be like, oh, I had a rough time at work. My hours are long. I want to party up on the weekends, but people don't realize that those hours, they compound. Consistency compounds. Like you take 7 hours in a week, you multiply that times however many weeks, 52. You put those hours into how long it gets you to proficient in a language. They want to say about 3 months. There you go. It's easy. Yeah. But it's easy on paper, but you just gotta dedicate the time. I'm sure you can take that one night at the bar, you're out there getting rejected, and go learn a skill. Yeah, go learn a skill that the hugest DOD budget in the next 10 militaries up has provided for you, not just to be good in the uniform, but outside the uniform as well.
Yeah, love it, dude. Love it. What is the most influential book that you've read? Last one.
Oh man, you're giving me a really, really tough assignment there.
It's tough for readers, so that's saying something about your reading habits.
Can I give 2 instead of 1?
Yeah, it's totally fine. The more the merrier.
Atomic Habits, huge one. That's where I learned a lot about the time blocking, and like this is why this is important in the macro, not just the micro. A lot of people that are into investing their money, which has a little bit of poetic resonance everywhere, because I think for some reason investing your money kind of bleeds over to a lot of other things you do, because a lot of people don't realize people get rich. Elon Musk is old per se. Gary Vaynerchuk is old. What are all these guys? So they're old. What does that have to do with anything, right? They're micro investments when they were younger. They've just come out the woodworks now. They've literally, nobody knew who these guys were when they were my age, but they were out there grinding. So Atomic Habits is going to teach you what your micro investments is going to lead to later on down the line into prosperity. Everybody wants to get rich now, right? Like, a lot of people lost a lot of money on Dogecoin and all this other stuff because they thought it was going to be a long-term investment. I, being the connoisseur that I am, freaking pulled out for all my buddies. But yeah, just focusing, that book will tell you a lot about how hard work pays off, and habits to focus on the macro, the huge picture. Because unless you can sing or play in the NFL or something, you're not just going to make that pay. I'm sorry. I'm a realist here. Yeah. And then the second one is 25 Hours a Day by Nick Bare. And yeah, for those of you guys who don't know who that guy is, he is that guy's very inspirational. He started a supplement company that is disrupting the whole industry. He went through ROTC at IUP, and he started his supplement company literally in the basement of his apartment. And now it's like the best thing ever. Like, he's the only one where a lot of supplements aren't regulated by the FDA. He's got his own screening process, but in that book, it just kind of teaches you how to get more time out of your day than you proceed beforehand. And I'm a little bit biased because I'm an ambassador for his supplement company, and I'll be sure to throw that in the show notes later. All right. But former infantry officer too. So whoever says that skills in the military doesn't, well, he's the CEO of a company that has over a 81.4 million% asset window for the year of 2021. Wow. Yeah, so those 2 books are really good. I highly recommend, and it'll teach you how to better know the why behind what you do and how to better budget your time and investments, if I had to say so. Yeah.
Awesome, dude. Awesome. Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your wisdom, sharing your experience, and hopefully a lot of people take advantage of what they've learned here on today's show. So if anybody wants to connect with you, ask you questions about, your career, your experiences, or how to get involved in tech that maybe those questions weren't answered here today, how can people find you?
So you can, I'm always on Instagram, just either sharing memes in my stories or random workout advice. And I saw a lot of people on my post. It almost got shared like 500 times. I might start doing more stuff like that. Who knows? _Chris_Gonzales. And I can go over maybe in another episode later, the power of LinkedIn. I'm actually on there a lot. So Christopher S. Gonzales. LinkedIn's a huge tool I did not cover in here. But it's very influential. I can go over that later. In fact, LinkedIn might be one of your tools, might be the easiest way to go talk to a CEO of a big company ever. But I'll get into that some other time. Yeah, that's where you can find me.
Absolutely. No, I love that idea. And, as I'm learning how to use LinkedIn also, I'd love to reconnect on that and kind of have a LinkedIn specific episode with you.
Yeah, I think LinkedIn is making it easier as ever for user accessibility, and it kind of blocks out all of the informalness of other social media platforms. Like it's just not supported, and that's not what it's meant for.
Nice.
But not going off on
selfies.
a tangent. I definitely thank you for your time, Jason, and I am glad you're on the forefront of supporting this cause. There's not a lot of people out there that are dedicating their spare time to this, and it's sad because there's a lot of resources that have not yet been uncovered that are just floating out there.
Absolutely. Thanks, brother, so much. I really appreciate it, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thanks, brother. Thanks for having me.
Hey, guys, I really hope you enjoyed that episode with Chris. Like I said, I learned a ton from that conversation. I really hope you guys did too. Chris is definitely going on to do some awesome things. And so if you guys want to get in touch with Chris to use his BPN link and, use those BPN supplements, definitely check out the description below where you can reach out to him via email, LinkedIn, Instagram, or use his BPM promo code. Also, the books that he mentioned, those links are in the description as well as links to research the tech-qualled Brakeline or the O2O Onward to Opportunity program through Syracuse. And so there's so much information in the description. So make sure you check out the description. And before you leave, if this is your first podcast listening here, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and stay in touch with me. We'll see you guys next week. Peace.